top 10 reasons why atheism is completely idiotic.
I know, I'm about as original as a Kiss cover band. Hey, God Rules, could you do me a favor?
Okay.
Could you keep making YouTube videos? You're a really easy target.
Okay. First thing they say to you, atheism is science. Oh, the mantra that never dies. It's science, folks. End of story.
Well, you're off to a pretty bad start, because as a statement, atheism is science doesn't even make sense. One could argue maybe that they reached that point through scientific reasoning, but atheism on its own is in no way scientific. As far as science is concerned, atheism is irrelevant.
You're stupid. If you don't believe, you're an arrogant, ignorant, knuckle-dragging Christian.
Oh, come on, that's not true. You could be an ignorant, knuckle-dragging Muslim.
That's all there is to it. You're just stupid. Because you don't know it's science. What's wrong with you dumb?
You are absolutely allowed to not believe in science that you don't understand. However, you jump the shark when you replace science you don't understand with creationist assertions that don't make any sense. That's when we'll call you stupid. I will notice that creationists will say that science is wrong, except they'll use science to prove science is wrong. Or they'll use existing scientific findings to prove their existing point.
But when pressed for proof, it is science, or that science has all the answers, what do we get in return from these atheists? Mocking, ridicule, anger, spite.
Nobody has ever claimed that science has all the answers. Despite the word science coming from a Greek root word meaning knowledge, science in the modern day is actually the pursuit of knowledge. Only creationists are dumb enough to say that their field of study holds all the answers. In fact, I think the day that science can answer everything will be a sad day, because there will be literally nothing left to explore.
A. Science cannot test God. You cannot put God in a test tube and run experiments on him.
Exactly. And to a logically minded person, that's all the evidence you need to prove that something doesn't exist. Oh, it's ethereal. Oh. If something's not testable, then it's not falsifiable. If it's not falsifiable, then it might as well just be thrown away.
B. Science can't test history. We might as well throw out all history books because they're bullshit, because they're not science. It's all lies.
Oh, you're just upset that archaeological dig proved that the story of Jericho was fake. Yes, science can test history. That's what archaeology is. That's what forensics is. That's what paleontology is. That's what geology is. If we couldn't test history, all of our favorite TV shows would look like this.
Hey boss, looks like somebody snuffed this priest. The killer will sure have some confessions today. So we gonna sweep for prints, boss?
No need. It was God's will.
C. Science can't tell you why you think you're a person.
Say what now?
Do you believe you're a person, or do you believe you're just millions of single-celled organisms working together in a body?
Did you fail biology? We're not millions of individual single cells. We're a multicellular organism. That is not the same thing as a big blob of individual cells. And I could ask this for all of your questions. What does this have to do with atheism? Can I hear that question again?
Do you believe you're a person, or do you believe you're just millions of single-celled organisms working together in a body?
It almost sounds like you're denying that you're made up of billions of cells. Are you unaware that that is a scientific fact?
Why are you a person? Do you think you're a person?
Personhood is a philosophical issue, which I don't think you have the depth to go into.
Well, if you're logical and scientific like these atheists say, you shouldn't think you're a person, because you're just random chance. You're just a blob walking around with a backbone in it.
I'm a self-aware vertebrate animal. And yes, I'm random chance. You're random chance. Learn to live with that.
And D, science cannot tell you what is right and wrong. So obviously morality doesn't exist either. It's bullshit. You can do whatever you want because science is king.
Again, you've touched on a philosophical issue. Nobody derives their philosophical outlook on life on scientific findings. All science does is tells us how the universe works. It has nothing to do with morality. And without going into another rant about it, morality is subjective. Everybody feels completely different about what is moral and what is not. And I bet all of your morals you derive from your own personal feelings, and not the Bible, the ultimate moral source. Otherwise you would have stoned some women by now.
Number 2, atheists say we don't need to prove atheism because It's a lack of belief. We don't have to prove it. You got to prove your religion.
Yeah, I don't know what's so hard to figure out about that. The claims that a God exists and that he lives outside of our universe is untestable, so it means nothing. And the claims that God has created miracles on the face of the earth has also not been proven to be correct. So the only other assertion we can make is that God doesn't exist. If you had any real evidence to show that God actually exists, we would change our minds.
There is a guy here on YouTube called Shock of God.
You're a Shock of God fan? I thought you were smarter than that.
Who has probably asked about 50 atheist YouTubers one simple question. What proof and evidence can you provide that proves atheism is accurate and correct?
Yes, and it's been explained to him that his question doesn't make any sense. Can you prove that a lack of belief in the flying spaghetti monster is accurate and correct without also disproving your God in the process?
He has a running video series, this Shock of God guy, on his account with 50 atheist YouTubers on his Hall of Shame for not providing 1 ounce of evidence for their beliefs. So far, he hasn't had anybody provide any evidence whatsoever that atheism is accurate and correct.
You know, after spending a few days making a Shock of God video, I think I've come to the realization of what the actual problem is here. It's not that you don't understand that not believing in something is okay to do, but you're so afraid to let go of your fake answers and admit that you don't know, that you're willing to cling on to them the same way a kidnap victim with Stockholm Syndrome is unwilling to leave their captor. You just fear the unknown so much that you will attack anybody who tells you that things are unknown or unknowable. Your book, your stupid little book, doesn't have any of the answers that you say that it does. It just has a bunch of guesses and assertions made by desert-dwelling, nomadic, Bronze Age goat herders.
Because it doesn't matter what they believe. It only matters that you're wrong. But see, they don't have any answers. And they don't have any proof that they're right. Just that you don't know what you're talking about.
Correct. We don't need to know what the answer actually is to know that what you think the answer is completely false. In the context of whether or not you're right, it doesn't matter what our assertions or our beliefs are. All that matters is that we can point out that you're wrong, and we will continue to do that over and over and over again until you stop making these stupid videos.
Number 3. Atheists tell you that evolution is fact.
Evolution is a fact.
It's fact.
Evolution is a fact.
It's fact.
Evolution is a fact.
And if you question it, you're an idiot.
It's not if you question it. Questions are welcome and, in fact, invited in the discussion of evolution. However, your question can reveal a lot about your understanding of science in general, and can also reveal a lot about your bias towards science. So yes, your question can make you sound like a complete idiot.
So far, I've done about 15 videos completely mocking atheism and presenting a viewpoint that actually makes sense. What do we get in return from these atheists? Mocking, ridicule, anger, spite. On those videos, I've had hordes of atheists give me thumbs down. I had 100 thumbs down in 5 days' time on one of them. Of all these hordes of atheists telling me that evolution is a fact, so far of the 10 plus times I've asked for proof, I have not had one atheist, not even one, of the thousands who watch my videos, provide one piece of evidence that macroevolution is fact. Not one. None of them literally, matter of fact, none of them have even tried.
That's not true. You've been presented with plenty of evidence. However, you've created some sort of unimaginable standard to which no evidence could ever possibly stand up, and have failed to communicate to us exactly what meets that standard. Not to mention the fact that the internet holds a plethora, an almost infinite amount of information supporting evolution. You would almost have to go out of your way to not read it, which I can only chalk up to intellectual dishonesty.
Because they're too busy mocking what you believe. They're too busy mocking. They don't have it. They don't have to prove what they believe. So far, I've done about 15 videos completely mocking atheism. They know everything. They got science.
Actually, the only people I know that are dumb enough to say that they know everything are creationists.
Number 4, atheists confusing science with blind faith and religion. Yes, I know. They're quite well known for telling everyone else that they're blind believers. But ironically, they're complete hypocrites. They have no clue what science or evidence even is, apparently.
Most atheists probably didn't come to their conclusion about the existence of a god based on science anyways. They probably came to the conclusion just by reading the Bible.
Science equals a branch of knowledge or study dealing with the body of facts or truths, systematically arranged and showing the operation of general laws, such as the mathematical sciences.
Just pointing out, you didn't say anything about philosophical outlooks on life, just facts.
I've taken Calc 1, 2, 3, 4 and differential equations, physics, statics, dynamics, thermodynamics, and a shitload of other classes because I'm a mechanical engineer. So I think I know a little bit about math. I think I know a little bit about science. I think I know a little bit about evidence.
For a mechanical engineer, you are incredibly stupid.
So far, no one has provided any scientific evidence that macroevolution even occurs. Okay? Now, you can provide proof of microevolution, and see, this is where they bait and switch you. They tell you, we got proof evolution it happens. But guess what? It depends on what type of evolution you're talking about. See, everybody believes in microevolution. That's called adaptation. That's within the DNA strand field. Okay? But then they use that proof from microevolution to prove macroevolution, which is total bullshit and has no proof. See, they don't tell you the difference. Adaptation says that you could take a dog and make them big or small within the DNA field. Okay, you can have them, dark, thick hair, thin hair. That's all within the reference of the DNA. It allows all that play there, you know what I mean? It allows for this field of differences.
Micro and macro evolution are not two different types of evolution. They do not describe different types of mechanisms or different types of changes. The terms only refer to periods of time. If you want to zoom in on a small space, say within a few generations, you would call that micro evolution. But if you zoom back and want to see how a species changed over a long period of time, say hundreds of thousands or millions of years, you would use the term macroevolution. Macroevolution is actually just a combination of small microevolutions. From the way you form your questions, and the kind of evidence you seem to be looking for suggests to me that you're actually looking for a type of proof that doesn't exist and can't exist. I can't prove that macroevolution exists under your definition because your definition is simply wrong. What you would have us believe is that a chicken doesn't just give birth to a slightly different chicken. A chicken gives birth to an ostrich, and then an ostrich gives birth to an alligator. And that's simply not how macroevolution works. The terms micro and macroevolution were coined in the early 1900s. They were used to quickly describe an idea without actually having to dive into it. Not to mention these words were actually originally written in Russian and translated into English. There isn't actually a consensus within the scientific community about exactly what these terms mean. Quite often scientists will accuse each other of misusing the term. I'm actually of the camp that chooses not to use the terms at all, because from my own scientific studies, micro and macro evolution are the exact same thing. The only difference is the time scale. So why do we have this disagreement about the validity of the theory of evolution? I would imagine the problem is that you simply do not understand it. So let me give you a quick refresher course. In the scientific world, the word theory does not mean an imagined idea. It means a hypothesis that has been tested rigorously, has been sent through the coals, has been published, has been scrutinized even further, and has passed all the trials to the point where it is the most plausible explanation. Evolution is not a debate. It is an indisputable fact. Now, the theory of evolution is not based on the observations made by a single scientific discipline, but in fact, several different disciplines. Just to name a few: paleontology, comparative anatomy, embryology, developmental genetics, mutation studies, transmission genetics, population and quantitative genetics, evolutionary biology, and even geology. Now, by all respects, each of these classes of scientific study don't really have much to do with each other. However, when it comes to the theory of evolution, the findings they make match up perfectly. One form of study could make a hypothesis, and the next form of study would confirm that hypothesis with findings. Now, I could go through examples for every single form of study, but I'll stick to paleontology, and as far as I'm concerned, this is the only nail in the coffin that's required. If Noah's flood occurred, as the Kenthovens of the world would have us believe, each layer of soil settled after shaking in a flood. If that were true, we would find fossils of all different types, shapes, sizes, mixed throughout the strata. We would find humans and dinosaurs together. We'd find trilobite mixed with elephants. We'd find squirrels next to saber-toothed tigers. However, that is not what we find. In fact, the further down we go through the geological columns, the less diverse, the less complex, the less evolved our findings become. In fact, we've become so good at predicting which strata different species will be in, we were able to predict what layer the first walking fish would be on. And sure enough, we found it. The Tiktaalik, exactly where we expected to find it. If evolution were not true, we should not be able to make predictions like this. What creationists would have us believe is that each animal type can only evolve within a certain boundary. They can't cross into another type of species. Now, how do they define these boundaries? Arbitrarily, of course. If something's a dog, it can only be a dog. If something's a cat, it can only be a cat. Now, how far along can something evolve before it stops? We don't know, because they don't actually have any scientific findings to back up this claim. They just say, that's what we like, so that's what they go with.
Exactly how much evidence is there for biological evolution anyways?
Mountains upon mountains of evidence. More than anybody could explain within one lifetime. People have dedicated their entire lives just proving one small aspect, putting all the pieces together for us to make this theory a nice, smooth, impenetrable force of scientific knowledge.
How did I get in your video?
Magic.
Magic's never an explanation for anything.
Wormhole.
Wormholes? I guess.
With magic.
Oh, of course, magic. Multi-angular, ginormous something or another.
It stands for Maximal Angular Gizmo Inclusion Computer.
What was it?
Science.
Science, but the thing is with science...
Could science do it?
Of course science could explain it, but that doesn't mean...
Then there you go.
It could be an explanation, but that's...
Well, my work here is done. Oh, shit.
But guess what? Macroevolution, that requires mutations, and it requires the DNA to change. We have no scientific proof of DNA changing ever in a scientific lab. Nowhere. Period.
That is absolutely false. We observe evolution and DNA change in the lab all the time. DNA structures, in fact, change in bacteria populations easily and quickly. Their environment has changed. They're given a substance that we know they're not able to eat or digest, and within a couple generations, their DNA has changed to allow them to eat that substance, digest that substance, and before you know it, their population eats and digests almost exclusively that substance. In fact, since the inception of antibiotics, we've been observing evolution and not even realizing it. There's a reason that certain bacterial strains become immune to antibiotics. Certain bacteria develop mutations that basically do not react to antibiotic medicines, allowing these bacteria to survive. Once somebody's been treated with antibiotics killing all bacteria that are not immune, it leaves only the immune ones in their body, which continue to develop and grow and reproduce with the same mutation, making that patient doomed to suffer the consequences of the disease. You're going to call that adaptation, but that is evolution.
But they still insist on telling me it's fact. If it is a fact, please provide proof and make me a believer like you, atheist.
Are you fucking with me? I have seen dozens of reply videos to your channel.
Number 5, atheists provide no answers for anything. Literally. Now, if you ask an atheist for proof God doesn't exist, he will give you all manner of materials and studies that they have rapidly produced.
Are you sure? Or do we not give you any evidence? Which is it? Make up your mind. Oh, I see what you're doing. You're playing the contradiction game.
Or if you ask them why heaven doesn't exist, they'll joyfully provide you some atheist book to read that has 20 arguments why heaven doesn't exist. However, when you ask them for answers, such as how did the Big Bang start, they say, well, we don't know. We don't know that.
And your problem with that is that you'd rather have a bogus answer than no answer. It's fucking genius.
We just work with science. That's all we work with is science.
I have a feeling you won't be satisfied until we start making shit up like you do. I'm sorry the truth isn't as fun as your fantasy world.
Or if you ask them why water is the only substance that increases in size when it freezes out of all materials?
Well, asking how it increases in size when it freezes is a meaningful question, but asking why is not a meaningful question. It's an irrelevant question because there's no way to test that.
Giving fish the ability to live in cold temperatures because ice is on top of the water rather than below. Because when the ice is on top, it actually allows the water to stay warm. It's a closed system. The ice was on the bottom, they would all freeze and die.
Actually, there's several organisms that can survive being frozen solid. Who's to say that if water didn't change size the way that it does, that the entire world wouldn't just be populated with organisms that can survive being frozen solid? I mean, that tracks with evolution.
When you freeze it, it gets bigger. And every other substance gets smaller. Isn't that kind of weird? Maybe it has something to do with intelligent design. I don't know. It's kind of weird. It's just some weird shit like that, you know what I mean?
Oh, look, everybody, another creationist that says something we don't know equals God. What a fucking surprise.
Or how by random miraculous chance, both sexes, male and female, of any and all animals that supposedly evolutionized, just so happen to mutate beneficially at the exact same time. And they just happen to mate, too.
Oh my god. They evolved together because they lived and mated together. They're related. Your objection would only make sense if males and females evolved on opposite sides of the fucking planet and then met millions of years later.
And guess what? We have no scientific evidence whatsoever that any mutation has ever done anything beneficial for any animal it's ever mutated in.
Well, it's true that the vast majority of mutations don't benefit the population, but it's not true that we don't have any evidence of beneficial mutations. In fact, the vast majority of big evolutionary changes are through mutations. It's the only explanation for some changes altogether.
And it just so happened to happen, but we have to take it on faith. But no, it's not faith. It's science, because we told you it's science.
It's not faith. It's a belief made through observations.
Number 6, atheists believe that the ancient aliens possibly created mankind. But of course, no, God could never make you. Are you fucking stupid or something?
Why doesn't that make more sense to you? It makes more sense to me. If we find out that it's true that intelligent design is the best hypothesis, it would only track that we were designed by another civilization, not by some ethereal sky daddy.
Yes, of course, if evolution is not a good fit for explaining how we got here, Professor Richard Dawkins has a new intriguing solution for you. Ancient aliens. Yes. Ancient aliens.
Yeah, I saw that interview with Ben Stein. Ben Stein hammered Richard Dawkins over and over and over again to describe a scenario where intelligent design could make sense to him. And he said, well, I suppose it would have to be aliens. But he's not actually saying that that's what he believes. He's also not saying that that will in any way replace the theory of evolution. Evolution is a fact.
They could have possibly created mankind. As long as God's hand was not guiding it. What are you, stupid? God? Are you kidding me? If we put God in the picture, we're just talking about fairy tales and spaghetti flying monsters and bullshit like that.
Exactly. We have absolutely no proof that a God exists, and yet we have proof by the life here on Earth that life could exist elsewhere in the universe. Why is that so hard for you to understand?
Number 7. Atheists are emphatic that God does not exist. And they're quite clear of this. That it's not blind faith. They're quite clear it's not blind faith, it's science. And that they have scientific proof that God doesn't exist.
Nobody in their right mind has ever said that there's scientific proof that God does not exist. There is no proof that he does exist. Therefore, we live our lives as if he doesn't.
Would you not have to be God to prove that you're a God? Wouldn't you have to have the ability of God to prove there's no God?
Exactly. And once we start going down that rabbit hole of circular reasoning, we realize that it is futile and pointless, and we go on about living our lives.
Seeing you would have to have all knowledge of reality, be able to look under every rock in the galaxy, and be able to look in all 13 dimensions.
Wait, what? 13 dimensions? I don't think we can prove even mathematically that there's any more than 10, because the 10th dimension is just everything. But you bring up a good point here. If God is as omnipotent as you say he is, then he really goes out of his way to make sure we don't know that he exists.
Hey, yo, God, are you in the 12th dimension? Yo, God, are you in the 11th dimension? Yo, God, are you way over there at that galaxy?
If God was the omnipotent creator the Bible said that he is, then he should be able to answer that question for you.
So apparently, That's not scientific proof, people. Somehow atheists would have you to believe that literally, having leaped tall buildings, searched the galaxy for God, and they know everything. They know everything about this. When in reality, they're eating Cheetos and masturbating to porn. And getting on YouTube.
Actually, I only do that on my spare time. And where were you going with this leaping tall buildings thing? That kind of petered off. You didn't really finish that thought.
Number 8. Atheists say there is no proof of intelligent design. Yet you only open your eyes. You can see all manner of complex ecosystems, life forms, solar systems, the beauty of reality everywhere in front of you. A sunset. But that's all random chance. That wasn't created.
I actually find the universe more beautiful knowing that it all happened through, as you say, random chance.
And this is what they call science.
No, it's not science. No. Actually, it's not science to say that you think God created it because it's purdy.
Number 9. Atheists, they think they have to no longer act right. They think they can do whatever they want. Now that they know there's no God, they can be asses and jerks to everybody on YouTube and everywhere in the world. They can be asses because they know they're right.
Okay, you're really projecting here. You can't possibly be speaking for the entire atheist community. We're not all asses, and those of us who are not all asses for no reason. And I'm not being an ass because I know I'm right. I'm being an ass because you're being an ass. This whole video of yours is designed to mock atheism in general. I mean, is this your first day on YouTube? People on here are assholes. Welcome to the internet.
But then they expect you to act nice back and be a good Christian and turn the other cheek and you know, all that kind of stuff. While they are mocking you and making fun of God, while not proving anything, while not providing any proof, while they don't have any proof for their beliefs whatsoever, and no one ever challenges them, they expect you to just sit there and take it. Be their little bitch. You know what I mean? After all, wasn't that what Jesus meant? Just be their little bitch? Just let atheists mock you and be nice back? No, of course not. Jesus meant to be kind, not to take shit from those who dish it out.
Well, as a former Christian, I know exactly what Jesus said. He said to turn the other cheek. He did say take it up the ass. He did say leave them alone. People are trolling you and getting reactions out of you. I'm being an ass to you because you're a fucking liar.
You don't have any answers. And I still haven't found an atheist yet to provide any answers. I'd like to see one. I'd like to see one actually provide something. So far, I have gotten nothing but bullcrap from atheists wrapped in a little science wrapper.
You keep beating this same drum over and over and over again, saying that nobody's giving you any proof, and then you now just literally admit that we give you proof, but the reason that you're not accepting it is because it's science. What the fuck?
Number 10, atheists will tell you that you're a mind-numb zombie. Who will believe anything?
Need I remind you that the title of your video is Top 10 Reasons Why Atheism is Idiotic. Number 10 is, without a doubt, your worst argument yet.
Yeah, most of these atheists I've encountered are just spewing mantras from their dear leaders, such as Richard Dawkins. Richard F. Dawkins. Sorry. They use similar debunked myths and phraseologies like the God of the gaps.
Are you going to explain to us why that's a bad argument? Because I could have used it on you like 12 times already. How many times have you said, oh, atheists don't know, so that means God?
You know, they keep quoting these mantras from all these stupid books they read. They don't look into anything, of course. You know, like one of theirs is like, Jesus, he's just a story from the ancient Roman and Egyptian gods. You know what I mean? No, it's all bullshit if you actually look into it.
Actually, if you look into it, the story of Jesus was told several times in several cultures by several religions long before Jesus ever came along.
The people they mock is what they are. The people they mock is what they are.
Oh, sure, let's just end this video on another assertion. Why the fuck not? You made so many already. You know, usually I try to be jovial and funny when I make these, but you just made me so fucking angry.
True story. Originally, Armored Skeptic was going to call himself Armored Super Skeptic, but he soon realized that his initials would spell out you know, so it was a bad idea. Don't ask him. That's really the story, though.